I took the side of animals and did to people only what they do to animals. I have always loved hunting. I often went hunting. But this was the first time I was going after a woman. Late 1970s, USSR. When girls began disappearing in the outskirts of Almaty, no one could have imagined that a cannibal had appeared there. Until local boys discovered a torn-apart body. The hunt for the man-eater lasted for more than a month, and the predator himself regularly went out hunting, eventually making a fatal mistake. Investigators were genuinely shocked when they learned the cannibal's name. The boys were playing when they accidentally stumbled upon human bones. Within minutes, the local police station's telephone rang. The on-duty officer could not believe his ears. An operational team rushed to the scene of the gruesome find. A portion of a young woman's torso, with arms but without a head, had been carelessly tossed among old branches and tangled wire. The victim's head and her legs were found nearby. No one thought that the person might have been eaten. Kynologists arrived with their dogs, and the officers examined the ground around the horrific discovery as if under a microscope. Then luck turned up. A piece of jewelry. A vintage ring. The ring turned out to be an antique, handcrafted piece. Investigators formed a hypothesis that the torn-apart body belonged to a young woman. They opened missing person cases for recent disappearances. Soon they were able to identify the victim, Nadezhda Erokina. She was a member of a Seventh-day Adventist church. The last time anyone saw her was after the evening prayer service. At first, the detective suggested that Nadezhda Erokina had fallen victim to robbers. However, the results of the forensic medical examination were puzzling. According to the experts, the recovered body parts lacked any soft tissue. The soft tissue had been removed mechanically. One of the operatives speculated, "The killer is a cannibal." But his colleagues dismissed the idea with outrage. It's unthinkable that one Soviet citizen could eat another. News of the brutal murder reached Moscow. The Ministry of Internal Affairs concluded that such a savage act could only have been committed by a mentally ill person and ordered an immediate manhunt to locate the perpetrator. Anna Legler, a resident of the village of Fabrishny, went to the bathhouse to take a steam bath and was never seen alive again. A missing persons report was filed with the police a day later. The detectives studied Anna's route and were surprised. It was only 20 meters from her house to the bathhouse. Where could the girl have disappeared to? Meanwhile, events were developing rapidly. In the outskirts of Almaty, they began to find torn bodies. Most of them were in the area of the same village of Fabrishny. Corpses appeared one after another. He killed, strangled, and dismembered, and then this cannibal went so far as to rape half-dead women. Panic began. Women were afraid of any rustle and noise. Women stopped going outside. Parents did not let their children outside. Many thought that the cannibal was trying to get into their house. In fear, people called the police. Everyone's nerves were strained to the limit. Meanwhile, the criminal continued to kill. One night, the residents of the village of Fabrishny were awakened by terrible screams. Lyuda Savelyevi woke up from the noise in the house and immediately locked the door to her room. Someone pulled the handle on the other side, and then everything went quiet. "Where is Mom?" the girl thought, and ran to the phone. She dialed 02, but suddenly there was a knock on the locked door. The delighted girl reached for the hook, but then the cuckoo clock began to chime from the moment she called the police. Only 2 minutes had passed. Did the patrol really arrive so quickly? The girl did not open the door, so the antique clock had just saved her life. The operatives who arrived saw a terrible picture. 2 torn bodies, the girl's grandmother and mother. From the forensic medical examination report, multiple stab wounds were found on the bodies of the deceased Saveliyevs. The victims are missing soft tissue from their lower limbs. The detectives examine the crime scene, and experts find a fingerprint on the windowsill. There is no doubt that the criminal left a trace. They check it against the fingerprint database, but there are no results. Only later does it become clear that the experts made an unfortunate mistake. Panic broke out in the Almaty region. Citizens were afraid to go out in the evenings. Even men did not go to work alone, but gathered in groups of several people. In the evenings, the villages seemed to die out. Local men always saw their mothers, sisters, and wives off to work and met them. Moreover, they always took some rusty crowbar or an axe as a weapon for self-defense. In a pinch, a hammer would do. Thus, the residents of the region lived in chronic fear for 8 long months. Meanwhile, detectives work day and night, check previously convicted individuals, involve agents, and call on all citizens to be vigilant and immediately report any suspicious individuals to the police. The tension in the city has reached its limit. One of the restaurant's patrons brought a piece of lamb and asked him to cook it. The cook found the meat suspicious. The restaurant worker remembered the rumors about the cannibal and rushed to call the police. The operatives who arrived detained the man and sent the meat for examination. The expert's conclusion was, "This is ordinary lamb." And at that very time, the cannibal was tormenting another victim. But this time, the bloodthirsty monster made a fatal mistake. At the beginning of December 1979, a charming young man approached Zoya Kashina, introduced himself as Nikolai, joked a lot, and then offered to walk the girl to the bus. Zoya had no idea what this ordinary acquaintance would turn out to be for her. A day later, the worried mother brought a missing person report to the police. The woman said that Zoya had gone ice skating and had not returned. The detectives checked the area around the Medio skating rink, but found no trace of the missing girl. At that time, the detectives did not know that Zoya was still alive, but they should look for her elsewhere. A cheerful gathering of friends was taking place in one of the houses in the Fabrichny settlement. Then the friend of the owner of the house told the police that they were sitting, drinking vodka and eating pelmeni. At about 5 in the morning, the owner called one of the girls into the bedroom with him. They stayed there for some time, after which he came out alone, and his hands, face, and clothes were stained with blood. In response to the guests' questions, the owner Nikolai sarcastically asked if we knew what we were eating. One of the guests answered that, yes, we knew. We were eating pork pelmeni. Nikolai, grinning, stepped aside, lifted the lid of the pot, and took out a girl's bloody head. All the guests ran away, as far away from the scary house as possible. The friend called the local police department and said that Nikolai Jumagaliev had dealt with some woman today and cooked pelmeni from her meat. However, the officer on duty only laughed and said that he had imagined it, and Nikolai was a good guy. But he still had to report to the management. The deputy head of the department and 3 operatives left for the scene. Entering Jumagaliev's house, they saw a truly horrifying picture. Nikolai, completely naked, covered in blood, was cutting up a murdered girl with a hunting knife. Noticing the uninvited guests, the cannibal grabbed a hatchet, a hunting knife, and a compass and rushed out of the house. A chase began, but the cannibal showed inhuman agility and disappeared into the darkness. The murdered woman turned out to be Zoya Kashina, the girl who had disappeared several days earlier near the Medeo skating rink. In the morning, servicemen of the internal troops arrive in the village of Fabrichny. Police patrols appear on the streets, and a helicopter is raised into the sky. However, the cannibal has disappeared into thin air. The detectives learn the name of the killer from witnesses of the night's drama. This is Nikolai Zhumagaliev, an employee of the local fire station. It becomes known that the cannibal's relatives live in a house on the outskirts of the village. The police literally turn the house upside down. They look for the cannibal everywhere, but to no avail. During a thorough inspection of the premises, the detectives notice something strange. The boards are old, but the nail heads are new, and they decide to lift the floor. Under the boards, they find a room, and there they find Nikolai Zhumagaliev. The cannibal is handcuffed and led out of the house under heavy guard. During the first interrogation, the detainee begins to give testimony. This footage is unique, an interview with the cannibal, Nikolai Zhumagaliev.
Уже в больнице, я в Ташкенте полностью уже прошлое.
Nikolai told detectives that he found his victims by chance. He grabbed the first girl, a parishioner of the Adventist church, near the highway and cut her throat. Nikolai drank her blood and dismembered her body. Local residents gave the criminal the nickname Iron Fang. Nikolai minced meat and even cooked dishes from it. In 1979, the killer was not caught. That year, the Iron Fang killed 5 more people. In 1975, Nikolai returned from the army, tried to enter the university, but failed. Then he went north and changed many professions. He worked as an electrician, a sailor, participated in geological exploration expeditions. But Nikolai's relationships with women did not work out. He wanted to find a faithful girlfriend, but the girls he met were flighty. They often cheated on him and made him hate him. In 1978, Nikolai Zhumagaliev returned to Kazakhstan, got a job as a fireman, and decided to start a new life. One day, he met a beautiful girl on the street, courted her for a long time, took her to a cafe, gave her flowers, and the infatuation grew into a romance. Zhumagaliev thought he had found his happiness. But on one of their dates, the girl admits that she does not love him. And one day, an epiphany dawns on Nikolai. The world needs to be cleansed of female filth. He decided to fight matriarchy, to perform a feat, to fight this evil as a disease of society. One day, an ancient book on occultism fell into the hands of the killer. It told how to become a new being like God with the help of human sacrifices. The cannibal committed all subsequent crimes in accordance with ancient treatises. He sincerely believed that at the moment of the victim's death, he draws mystical power. During the search, the police found a barrel in which he had salted the meat of women. The cannibal found his victims by chance. He believed that higher powers were helping him. Nikolai thought that if he drank a victim's blood, He would acquire the abilities of a seer and would also be able to watch the soul leave the body through the wound. Neither of these things happened, but Nikolai enjoyed killing. In one of his books, he read that a cut in the throat allows one to see the soul departing the body. He was equally fascinated by the claim that drinking a slain person's blood could grant prophetic powers, so he decided to test the information from the books on his own experience. Of course, Zhumagaliev did not become a clairvoyant, but he did not stop after a single murder. In April of the same year, he attacked an elderly woman who was walking home from church. She became his new meat supply. The maniac, who earned the nickname Iron Fang because of his metal crowns, explained his deeds very simply. "I took the side of animals," he said. "I did to people what they do to animals." Among other things, the killer admitted that he took revenge on women for their cruelty and promiscuous lifestyles. All of Zhumagaliev's murders, driven by his obsession with occultism, were committed on memorable dates, such as the birthdays of relatives, turning them into something akin to pagan sacrifices. He recounted these details to investigators so calmly that even seasoned police officers felt a chill run through their veins. After his arrest, the maniac was sent to Moscow, where leading psychiatric specialists studied the cannibal for an extended period. The Consilium's decision came as a complete surprise to the detectives. Nikolai Zhumagaliev was insane. The murderer was placed in a specialized treatment clinic. There, Nikolai was extremely polite to the doctors, never argued with anyone, and complied with every prescription. In August 1989, specialists concluded that Zhumagaliev no longer posed a danger to society and could be transferred to an ordinary hospital. During the transfer, accompanied only by an orderly and a nurse, the maniac escaped. Nikolai Zhumagaliev hid in the mountains between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan for almost 2 years. Police and military units searched for him. At first, the military refused to take part in the hunt for the cannibal. But the head of the police department reminded the unit commander that the officers' wives were the most beautiful women in the region. That remark worked. The soldiers became fearful for their own wives. Zhumagaliev, however, proved to be very cunning. Through an acquaintance, he arranged for a letter he wrote in the mountains to be sent first to Moscow, and then, from there, to Bishkek. The letter contained the lines, "I won't be back soon. There are many beautiful women here. No one will notice their disappearance." Thanks to journalists, the attention of the operatives quickly shifted from searching the mountains to looking for the criminal in Moscow. The letter was sent for forensic examination, and the experts confirmed that it was written in Zhumagaliev's hand. Could he really have made it to the capital? A stir erupted at the highest levels, and a newspaper ran a headline, "Cannibal in Moscow." It later turned out that the cannibal had written the letter deliberately to confuse the investigators. He was actually far from Moscow. Meanwhile, the search for the escaped cannibal never stopped for a single minute. Posters with his photograph and the caption "Wanted" were posted all over the streets. Girls and women were kept indoors. The police hunted the criminal with dogs, and mounted units scoured the mountain trails on horseback. The police asked a local hang gliding club for help in surveying the high ground in order to locate the fugitive, Nikolai Zhumagaliev. The man-eater managed to stay hidden from his pursuers for 2 years until he was finally caught for stealing sheep. The crafty criminal disguised himself as a Chinese man, using his appearance to mislead the authorities. He was placed in a communal cell, and during interrogations he readily admitted to the theft, but could not explain how he had entered the Soviet Union. The police sent a request to Moscow. Instead of a reply from the capital, an operative arrived and exposed the pseudo-Chinese imposter. Rumor has it that when the other inmates learned who their new cellmate was, they were horrified. Once again, doctors declared Nikolai Jumagaliev legally insane and sent him back to a psychiatric hospital. But the cannibal's story did not end there. Several times he was pronounced cured and released, only for the authorities to later discover mutilated bodies in the surrounding area. Today, Nikolai Jumagaliev is isolated from society in a special psychiatric clinic surrounded by high fences topped with barbed wire. Thank you for watching the video to the end. To support the channel, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I have many interesting stories.